What it do, y'all? Bread Tuck Rob, Bread Tuck Gang forever. I am Black Royalty, 11 million after taxes, all that. Before we get into this, if you're in the Houston area and you need clothes, men or women's, EK Melange, 2909 Hillcroft Street, 100E, Houston, Texas, 77057. Okay, that's EK Melange in Houston, Texas. Also, if you need a haircut and you're in Houston, visit DL All-Star Cuts. That's going to be 6305 Dumfries Drive, Houston, Texas, 77096. As for JT, Big Rome, or my barber, DL. And y'all, excuse me if you're seeing this video, excuse me, I got my Rockets jersey on. I need a new Rockets jersey because this is peeling. But I got that on because that's how I watch the games. I'm a super fan. Go Rockets, okay? Yeah, let's talk about the good stuff, man. Yesterday, I looked at a documentary on YouTube called 13th, and the documentary was by Ava DUVERNAY. I hope I'm saying her name right. Ava DUVERNAY. She directed Selma, right? And she was supposed to direct the Black Panther movie, the Marvel Black Panther movie, and Black Panther, which is my favorite superhero, but the Marvel Black Panther movie that's coming out in 2018, but she passed on it. Okay, so the great brother that wrote that movie, Creed. Why am I not remembering my guy's name right now? Ryan Coogler. That brother's gonna be directing it and co-writing it. So shout out to him. But back to Ava DUVERNAY. She put out this incredible documentary called 13th. And that movie was talking about mass incarceration. All right? And this whole strategic plan of mass incarceration. The documentary starts off talking about slavery, right? And how slavery, quote unquote, ended after the Civil War. So slaves thought they were free. But then the white supremacists created this system of how they were going to, how black people can feel like they were free, but there was a system to get them back into not being free, if that makes any sense. I should have worded that better. But getting them back to being captive. Okay, they had these jails and they were locking black people and former slaves up for meaningless crimes, loitering, right? And they made excuses. They said that black people were a threat to white women. Black men were a threat to white women. And in this documentary, they showed clips of the original Birth of a Nation movie. But shout out to that brother Nate Parker who used the title Birth of a Nation and wrote the Nat Turner film. And as black people, you need to go see that. Go see that movie. Support that movie. But back to, I think I talked about that in another video. But Birth of a Nation. And it was about how the KKK were heroes in that movie. They saved helpless white women from black slaves. Women were jumping off of cliffs just so they wouldn't be raped by black slaves. This movie the movie looked garbage. You had white men running around in blackface. It was a mockery of black people. And it just made, it was just made to that movie, the whole purpose of that movie was to make black people look like the enemy. Okay? But they wrote that movie to justify the narrative that goes on today. We'll get back to that. Then it talks about Richard Nixon as president, and how he began the war on drugs, and how, as he was president, incarceration of black people was high. I think it was at like 500,000, right? And the drug of choice back then was like heroin. And one brother made a good point in the documentary. He was saying, instead of, making these people out to be criminals, why didn't we look at it as them having a sickness? They had an addiction. How do we help them get off of this addiction of heroin instead of just locking them up, right? But you're just throwing these brothers in jail. Then it talks about that Reagan era, right? In the 80s, that Reagan era. And how the war on drugs continued. And how there were these new drugs, crack and cocaine. And people who had money, Caucasian people, they were doing cocaine while black people were selling crack, right? But guess which one of these drugs got you more time in prison? Having possession of this drug, crack, right? So the white people got slapped on the wrist while black people were doing major time behind this crack cocaine, right? And they did like a little split screen, not a split screen, but during the Nixon era, 500,000 black people were in prison. Reagan boosted up to 700,000, right? So we move on. George Bush Sr. Now watch this. George Bush Sr. was running up